Well, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 69 of the Rock Podcast. For those about to pod, we salute you. On this episode, we have latest news. We have 3 albums to review in New Rock on the Block. We also have some hidden gems. And this episode, we have the letter V. Good luck us, Matt. But here he is.
Yes, indeed.
Back in the saddle and having put his toys away in the attic. Here he is, my co-host, Mr. Matt Rogers. See what I did there?
I did, yes. Yes, hello. I did say that, Brian. Yeah, hello, how you doing?
I'm good. And how are you? Because you're always very quick to go, yes, thanks, Brian. Thanks for asking.
Oh, yes. God, it took me completely by surprise there. Yes, I'm very well, thank you. I was just reflecting on the way you said podcast.
Podcast?
It reminded me of when Christopher Walken introduced the Foo Fighters on Saturday Night Live, I think it was. And he said to Dave Grohl, where's the emphasis? Foo or Fighters? And Dave Grohl said that there really isn't an emphasis on any of the words in Foo Fighters. But Christopher Walken, being Christopher Walken, when he came to introduce the Foo Fighters, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Foo Fighters."
Foo Fighters.
Exactly. Like a podcast.
Podcast.
Yes. Yeah, I did see what you did there. Yeah, that was very good. You've obviously given this some thought.
Well, pre-production was a long meeting, wasn't
it? Pre-production was a very long meeting, actually. Yeah, 3 hours of pre-production.
Absolutely.
Exhausted. Aerosmith. Yeah, let's start there in the news. So, yes, Aerosmith have made a statement saying that they basically have stopped touring. I think they kind of made that announcement mid-tour. They were never quite sure with Aerosmith because they kind of stop and start their tours. But and they were supposed to do their farewell tour a couple of years ago, weren't they? But due to Steven Tyler's ongoing vocal issues, he's got a fractured larynx.
Yes.
I mean, that sounds very painful. Whenever we talk about, ailments, like whether it be Richie Faulkner or whoever, it's very painful. Or mind you, everything sounds painful to me. A fractured larynx. Jeez. I mean, you probably know more about that than I do. What because you've done some research. What does that mean? Basically, he's been told you can't sing anymore.
That's very much, yeah. And the fact that it's the medical team has come out and said he has permanent vocal cords damage.
Wow.
So it sounds like, with I suppose maybe some of the similarities with what happened with John Bon Jovi. It's his voice was knackered, and they were able to do the plastic placement of stuff in his vocal cords or whatever. But I suppose Steven Tyler's 76, Matt, so he's kind of going, good innings. Do you know what? Let's just call it a day. And do you know what? I applaud them for what they've done, because they're one of those bands who, they've in the early 80s, they were kind of a bit lost at sea. And then when they came back with Permanent Vacation, and the whole MTV stuff, Love in an Elevator, Janie's Got a, they went through the back end of the 80s. And for those people who were lucky enough to go to Donington 1990, I think a lot of people said that Aerosmith blew Whitesnake away. They were unbelievable. So to go out classy and just say, we're a band of brothers, one of our guys is not able to do it, then we're just going to call it. I think that's there's a bit of touch of class about Aerosmith doing that.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I mean, as we've said many times, they've left a great legacy.
Yeah,
amazing albums. As you say, they had a weird period, didn't they? When Steve keeps calling him Steve Perry, when Joe Perry left, his brother, of course. When Joe Perry left, we'll come on to Journey.
We'll
later,
get on to Journey.
Yeah, although not with Steve or Joe Perry. Yeah, I remember when Steve. I've done it again. I remember when Joe Perry left. Yeah, they went through a weird little phase, didn't they? But you're right. I mean, they bounced back. I've seen them a few times. Have you seen Aerosmith?
I've never seen Aerosmith. It'll be a regret of mine that I never got a chance to see them.
Yeah, I saw them. I think on that sort of 1987 tour, whatever the album was, Pump, I guess, or
Yeah, it would have been Pump. Yeah.
one of those. I saw them to Download a couple of years ago. That was good. I've never stayed to the confession, everyone. I've never, apart from that 87 gig, I never stayed to the end of an Aerosmith gig. And there are good reasons. One, Hyde Park in about 2007, it was throwing it down with rain. Stayed for about an hour. Download 2017, it was freezing. And we were all standing there in our kind of T-shirts and shorts, left after about an hour. And then, what was the other time? Oh, London, what was it called?
Oh, London Calling, yeah.
Was it called London Calling?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Had to leave because we were too drunk and we had to go, my wife and I. So, but I mean, nevertheless, they did put on a great show. Yes, sad news indeed. But you never know. You touched upon it in a lengthy pre-production meeting that maybe his throat will get better and maybe they can do some albums. But 76, bit like Brian Johnson. Come on, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
you can go on permanent vacation now. It's fine.
There you go.
Anyway, what's next, Brian?
Let's stay with let's stay with mighty US rock acts then. Now let's go into Journey. All is not well in Camp Journey at the moment. We thought, Matt, that all of the legal shenanigans and suing and countersuing between Jonathan Cain and Neil Sean had all been put to bed. They're currently touring the US with doing a stadium tour with Def Leppard, and it's come out that Jonathan Cain has sued Neil Sean because Neil Sean is again we're reading this in the press, so we'll use the word allegedly. That Neil Sean continues to go over the $1,500 limits on hotel rooms and other additional expenses, Matt, in terms of what was agreed. So basically, Jonathan, I think, is suing Neil to sort of put his credit card back in the pocket so that they're not just blowing everything on expenses. So this is all happening. I think Dean Castronova has sat out a show, and the drum tech has had to sit in the show. So there's potentially some issues around drummers, and then the good old UK and Ireland becomes we get then the announcement that says, "Oh, Journey have cancelled their upcoming UK and Ireland tour," which is a real shame,
Yeah. So I'm glad you added some context to that, because when I saw the announcement, and having looked into getting Journey tickets when they came out a few months ago, they were very expensive.
Yes.
I mean, I would pay that if Steve Perry rejoined as opposed to his brother Joe. But £140, which is, I don't know, $160 for our US listeners. That's quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I thought it was due to bad ticket sales, to be fair, which it may well be.
Could well be.
Or it might be just that they've too much legal wrangling. But they haven't cut their, as you were saying, they're out on a tour with, I think it's Steve Miller and with Def Leppard.
Yeah.
That's a good bill, isn't it?
Oh, it's fabulous, Bill.
I think there might be someone else on the bill as well. And then I think they've still got Japanese tour dates, which are currently still on sale. So they've cancelled the UK, not Japan, and obviously they haven't kind of pulled out halfway through the US tour. So it may well be ticket sales. I don't know. I mean, it's the thing is, as we've touched on many times, when bands come to the UK, they need to cover their costs, make some money, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And if they're not doing it, well, have to kind of have second thoughts.
And the last few times, Matt, the last few times that Journey have come across, any time that I've seen Journey in the UK, they famously they toured with Whitesnake, and
That's right.
Thunder came out of retirement.
Yeah.
And were the opening band. Now that bill was just fantastic. You know, Thunder were great. I saw them in another three band bill, which was Journey, Foreigner, and Styx. So I think when you package it all up and you put like three great bands, it seemed to be in the mid 2000s where particularly American bands, when they were coming to the UK to help cover their costs and drive up sales, you would have good packages put together. And I'm not, you know, I don't know what the package was like for Journey coming across, but you would expect, Matt, for 140 quid or whatever it was, that Journey would have been coming with a couple of other, but you know, mediums, you know, big hitting bands, and maybe the bill just wasn't right for ticket buyers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, possibly. Cheap Trick were the only guest on the tour in the UK, which you know they're you know good band in their own right, but whether they are quite the draw that they once were,
I wouldn't. The Cheap Trick are always, you know, they're great value. I've seen them a few times. You know, I saw them supporting Def Leppard. Yeah, and I also saw them supporting Deep Purple. So they're always part of a good package, but they're usually a few bands in the bill. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you see Cheap Trick, to be fair, you do get, you know, the benefit of Rick Nielsen's huge collection of picks being thrown out into the audience, and also the odd album that he tosses out. I remember one gig and he threw out an album, and I think nearly took someone's head off. So you know, you do get you got to, you know, make sure your insurance is up to date, but also you might get a freebie into the bargain.
Yeah, I think I actually have a Rick Nielsen plectrum. I was quite surprised when I went to see Deep Purple and they were supporting. Like, Rick's mic stand was just absolutely just. It was just top to bottom, just full of plectrums. He was just pinging them. You know, he was hardly playing.
Yeah. So annoying when players play. Not that I've ever caught a pick, by the way, or got one anywhere near it. But when you see players playing with, you know, just their fingers, or just one pick, you think, no, and they just put it in their pocket at the end and say, "See ya." Oh, great, thanks. We'll come on to pop and rock memorabilia at some point. Pop. Why did I say? I've got confused with our sister podcast.
Exactly.
Those out of pop, which going back to the Journey story for a minute. I mean, it never happened to us, that whole suing each other, because we haven't got a budget, right? We still, after 69 episodes, we still haven't got a budget. I don't know where we go to get a budget, by the way. I don't know who we apply to.
That's
but
true.
We should get a government grant.
Exactly.
I mean, the Irish government, we talked about it last time in the context of Rory Gallagher's guitar. They got some money. Why don't you have a word with, what's his name, the Harshock?
Taoiseach.
I got that wrong. With due respect. Why don't you have a word with the Taoiseach?
The Taoiseach of Ireland.
Why don't we have a word with him and see if he can cough up some budget? Anyway, now let's get off that subject.
Yeah. You wanted to mention Rick Nielsen.
I did, actually, in a lighter vein. So Rick Nielsen, famously, the guitarist in Cheap Trick, and quite an eccentric character, to put it mildly. So he has been honoured. I think it's an honour. He has got, and people would have seen this in the news, I would have thought, he has had, in his honour, or to be honoured, a 62 foot tall guitar sculpture outside the Hard Rock Casino in Rockford, Illinois.
Fabulous.
Which is not, he's not actually from there. He's from 77 miles down the road, apparently. But that said, it's quite something. It'll be based on his iconic checkerboard Hamer. Is that how you pronounce the guitar?
Yes, Hamer. Well done.
And I know you'd know, because you know a little bit about guitars.
Not much,
but a little bit. And which is nice. But he was born. It's like me getting I don't know. I mean, if I could play the guitar half decently, having a guitar in Birmingham, and me being here, you know.
Yes.
Oh, great! I'll go and see it when I'm. It's up there. It's in Birmingham.
Aye.
I picked that around. I'm not quite sure. Birmingham's 77 miles per hour, but you get the general idea. Yeah, he was born in Elmhurst, Illinois, and they're all from Illinois apparently, which is it's quite nice. It'll be unveiled on the 29th of August. So if you're in Rockford, Illinois, on the 29th of August, as opposed to being at Stone Dead Festival that week, you will see it. And there's going to be performances there by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Brad Paisley, and many more.
Yeah, great guitar player, Brad Paisley.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm nodding. I've never heard of him. I thought it said Bob Daisley. And I put my glasses on, and it said Brad Paisley. Who's Brad Paisley?
Brad Paisley. Oh, I see. You're doing this just to check to see that I know. So Brad Paisley is he's an amazing guitar player. He's in that kind of new country, sort of Keith Urban. But famously, Brad Paisley on social media, now and again, he'll rock up his set. So there's some great YouTube footage of Brad playing the likes of, Panama or Jump by Van Halen. And then when it comes to the guitar solo, he wheels. So he famously plays a Fender Telecaster in the kind of country style, but he's a fabulous guitar player. Really, really good player. I like him.
Good. Excellent.
Yeah.
And finally, for me, now we've occasionally mentioned Tony Iommi on this podcast, and the great man. If you remember, a few years ago, we talked about his cologne that came out.
Yeah, and then we went and priced it.
I know. His cologne, which was called Scent of Dark.
Yeah.
And he's got another one out.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
From the House of Iommi.
Exactly. Well, actually, it's made in conjunction with an Italian company called, I think I'm pronouncing this correctly, Zherzhov.
Okay.
Something like that, anyway. And it's called Deified, which is a very kind of Black Sabbath-y, Tony Iommi thing to say, or to call it, rather. And I'm resisting the temptation to do my Tony Iommi impersonation, of course, as you can tell, because there's really no need. But apparently, when he goes for it, So accompanying this new eau de parfum, this new cologne, is a song called Deified. So we look forward to that. Produced by Iommi and his long-standing collaborator Mike Exeter. It's a very rock and roll name, isn't it? Mike Exeter.
Well, it could be Mike Plymouth or Mike Surrey.
It's true.
At least you could shorten it down to Mike X.
That's true, actually. Yeah. Anyway, well, he hasn't. He just calls himself Mike Exeter.
Okay.
Anyway, that was the latest Iommi news.
Okay.
Without an impersonation for a change.
Well done, you.
Yeah,
And the only the thing I'll finish off with on the news will be finally recently one of the most iconic charity concerts for many people. It was the inaugural sort of precursor to Live Aid. So it's it's known as the Concert for Bangladesh that George Harrison put together in 1971, and I think there was it was in response to UNICEF and challenges that were going on in Bangladesh at the time. So George got together with a few of his mates, Ringo, Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan, Leon Russell. And they had 2 nights in Madison Square Gardens, and the album's been released and the DVDs come out many years ago, but it's never hit streaming services. So recently, in the last few weeks, the Concert for Bangladesh has come on to streaming, and I'm fortunate enough that my aunt gave me I have an original copy of the three. I've got the box set from the 70s. So it's
Nice.
a special album for me. I love it. But the interesting story about the concert for Bangladesh was, effectively George got all of his mates and said, let's do the concert. But then it got stuck in tax, and because it was 3 albums, the British government wouldn't give them the VAT back, and all of the different artists were signed to different record labels, so it took ages for the album to come out to generate the money. So George went through years of legal wranglings with record companies and lawyers, etc. But they finally got it sorted. But what George did whenever Bob Geldof and Majur and the Live Aid Trust were kicking off Band Aid, and then latterly the Live Aid concerts, George advised Bob around, here's the learnings that we had from the concert of Bangladesh. If you want to make sure that the money goes to the Ethiopian appeal, do this stuff and not this. So it's quite an iconic concert, and anybody who's got streaming services, you will be able to. And I think they're going to be streaming the film as well too. So big.
Very good.
This episode, that's a big thing for me. So we'll maybe stick some tracks from Concert of Bangladesh on the playlist, mate.
Okay, we'll do.
That's the news.
So, Brian, that brings us to New Rock of the Block.
Yes.
Wherein, and I'm telling you, I'm not telling you, I'm telling how many listeners now is it? 14, 15?
I think 14, 15, maybe.
It's been 14 for a while,
We've got a rugby team now.
Almost.
No subs.
We've got a rugby league team.
Yes.
And 1 sub. We digress. Yes, 3 albums by various artists this week. Scarlett Rebels, Bywater, and a little band called Deep Purple.
Yes.
So let's go with... should we start with Scarlett Rebels, Brian?
I think we can do.
Their new album, Where the Colours Meet. What did you think of Wales' finest Scarlett Rebels?
I was taken back to 1988, Matthew.
Oh, really?
I was taken back. First of all, the tracks that have been released on so far that we've heard, it's a lot of the new bands that we've been listening to recently have had a southern rock sort of feel to it. We talked about the Karma Effect and These Wicked Rivers, and this is just, honest to God, old-fashioned classic rock. It's just, it's great singing. Wayne Doyle, the singer, does a phenomenal job on the production on the tracks that we've heard. But when I listened to it, it just took me back to between 1988 and 1990. I was hearing in Wayne's voice, you remember that sort of Bob Catley Magnum or Going LA, that Goodnight LA. It was just, it's kind of Bon Jovi, Magnum, even a little touch of U2 in there. It was just fantastic. The lead off track, Secret Drug, has got an intro that sounds very much reminiscent of Won't Get Fooled Again. But the songwriting, Let Me In, it's just straight ahead rock and roll. And the thing the best way I could describe how the strength of these tracks, if Bon Jovi had put out these tracks, Matt, I think it probably would have been received better than the current Bon Jovi album. I think the songwriting and the production is just reminiscent of that New Jersey-ish late 80s classic rock. It just knocked me out in terms of how great it was, the guitar solo, and I was really surprised. But I like Scarlett. I'm putting an asterisk there. I've seen them supporting Smith Kotzen, and they were fantastic. and I've seen them at Steelhouse, and they put on a great show. They're a great band, and they always chart well. You know, top 10 albums. And I think this album's they're just getting better and better as a band. So I know I usually get quite enthusiastic when I listen to new music, but I thought it was great. How about you?
Yeah. No, same. Yeah, I mean, I think their songwriting is taken a step forward. This is their third studio album. Following on from Show Your Colours in 2019, is See Through Blue in 2022, which I think we might have reviewed or had as a hidden gem.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have taken a step forward. They're headline in the UK, or tour in the UK as headliners. I'm going to go and see them in London with special guest, the Hot 1-2. It's a UK tour, Bri. You'd be pleased to hear.
Oh, that's good. That's good. They're not that big yet that they can they can ignore the rest of the country.
No, that's right. And I imagine their tickets are not quite as expensive as Journey's. So yeah, I would urge everyone to go and see them. I actually saw them at they were on at Made of Stone a few weeks ago, actually, a festival that I went to. They were great, very mature. Got a brilliant guitarist in Chris Jones, CJ. As you say, Wayne Doyle. He's now playing rhythm guitar as well as singing.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in your references, because when I listened to it, I heard a bit more. I guess it's classic rock, but I heard a bit of Manic Street Preachers in his vocal style. And maybe I'm thinking, they're both Welsh. I don't know whether they're the same part of Wales, but I thought maybe a bit of James Dean Bradfield in the sort of singing style.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
But yeah, good. I mean, great piece of work. As you say, good songwriting. My favourite song is a song called Grace, which has got beautiful lyrics. There's been so many good songs. There's so many good albums this year. It's great. And as you say, Secret Drug's good. They can't help themselves with their political kind of shots at the English government or British government, as was in Streets of Fire.
Streets of Fire, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I think it's a great, solid album. I urge everyone to go that's in the UK to go and see them on this tour.
Yeah.
Because they're really well worth seeing. Hot 1-2, who are playing with them, are brilliant live. Tons of energy and brilliant songs. So I mean, what a double bill that is. But yeah, the album, really good, really good. I mean, I think it might go. They went. I think their last album went top 10 or top 20. So very much in that sort of modern production style. The production style reminded me a bit of what's your man's? My mind's gone blank. Wayward Sons. It reminded me of the sort of Wayward Sons production style. Yeah. I'd be interested to know if it's the same producer, or maybe Toby Jepson had a hand in both. But good album. Yeah, we're checking out.
Great album.
Where the Colours Meet by Scarlett Rebels. So where should we go next, Brian?
We will go to Bywater Call, Matthew.
Yes, indeed. Bywater Call, another band from Ontario, Canada. Mm-hmm. One of my favourite parts of the world, even though I've only been there once. And do you want to go? No, I'll go first.
I think you should go first in this one.
So I think everyone should buy this album. I loved it from the minute I put it on, and I'm not a great one for kind of Americana. In fact, I'm starting to become more of an Americana fan as I listen to these albums, the likes of the Commoners and obviously these guys, Bywater Call and When Rivers Meet and so on. Good songs. You get a lot for your money. They're a 7-piece band.
Yeah.
And they've got Hammond organ, they've got keyboards, they've got brass section. I mean, it's a very full sound. The singer, who's she's certainly got the sort of vibe of Janis Joplin, I would suggest. They've got this, and it's fine. They're playing to her strengths, being a brilliant singer. Megan Parnell, and I think it's great. I think they're really good, and I listen to them on the strength of stuff I've heard on the radio, which is how it should be. And subsequently, I think everyone should go and buy this album because it is absolutely brilliant. One of my favourite albums of the year. It's called Shepherd, by the way, which I think is a great understated album title. And yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it from start to finish. And I sense from your, because I can see Brian, of course, when we're doing these podcasts.
The podcast.
It's you're not quite as excited by it as I am.
Matthew, it's my album of the year so far.
Oh, really? Oh, my goodness. Okay.
I put this album on. I'm a big fan of roots, roots rock, southern soul. And when I heard it, the opening track, which is Everybody Knows, it reminded me of, if you take the vocals away for a moment, but if you listen to the music on the first few tracks, it reminded me when the Black Crowes went from the kind of the Stones sound that they had on their debut album, and then they went to the Southern Harmony, and it went a lot more Hammond keyboardy. We think of tracks like Remedy, and it was a lot more percussive. I heard that opening track, and I just thought that is that style just musically sounded like the Black Crowes from Southern Harmony. But when I listened to the rest of the album, so it's reminiscent of a lot of the jam bands from the 70s. So you've got Little Feat, who I love. You've got Derek and the Dominoes around the time of Layla. If you listen to that album, there's quite a lot. And we've talked about Leon Russell, and then there's the Tudutsky Trucks band, which is Derek Trucks, who's probably one of the world's greatest slide players, and Susan Tudutsky is a great singer, but I'm not. I like them, but Bywater Call just take it to a completely different level, and I was just completely. I listened to the album twice in a row, Matt. I've been driving about quite a lot this weekend, so I've been in the car and I listened to that album back to back, and it just floored me how accomplished a piece of work is. And you've got there's track As If you there's a funkiness to there's so, like, if you like your Sly and the Family Stone, James Brown, there's just so many colours to what they can do. So they're touring the UK in October, and luckily they're playing up in Scotland. I can't wait to go and see this band. Just I honestly, find of the year for me so far. Blown away.
Fantastic. Yes, so that was Shepherd by Bywater Call. Brian's album of the year so far.
Absolutely.
We're well into August, so maybe it won't be beaten. The album cover's brilliant as well, by the way. It's very minimalist,
isn't it? Yes.
We've started to pay more attention to album covers these days as things come out on vinyl, of course, as they have done for a few years, and it's quite a striking piece. You could I could put that on my wife wouldn't allow it, of course, but I could put it on a wall in my house if I was able to.
Talking about an album that's album cover that you wouldn't put on your wall.
Yes. Deep Purple and Equals One.
Yes.
Now, I did see Roger Glover and Ian Gillan talking about this. Why it's called Equals One. And I'm still none the wiser, frankly. I mean, I think I've got to finish. This might be their last album, because I think it seems to indicate that everything is kind of ended up here, and it kind of ended, and it all equals one.
Yeah,
I guess, like the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. I don't know. I mean, have you got any sense of why it's called Equals One?
No, I've no idea at all.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll kind of come out in the wash, as it were. What did you think of it, Brian?
I was very pleasantly surprised, Matt. I think Deep Purple's last album that they did in 2021 was a bit of a lackluster covers album, and I think when bands start putting out covers albums, it's either through contractual obligations, or they're struggling with their creative juices or whatever you want to call it. So so it kind of felt like Deep Purple with doing the covers album. Okay, this maybe we're coming to the end. But I think Simon McBride coming and joining the band after Steve Morse, and Steve Morse is one of the greatest guitarists of all time. Where this sits for me, Matt, the compliment that I can give it is it's the best album from Deep Purple since Perfect Strangers. But it doesn't sound as modern as Perfect Strangers. It feels like the album that they made after Fireball. It's got a real 70s percussive vibe to it. That some of the tracks that came out that were released, a few months ago, like Pictures of You is a banging song. It's fabulous. They If I Were You, it's got an Iron Maiden gallop to it. It's so there's life in the old dog yet. So I was really surprised. I thought musically very interesting, a little bit more straight ahead rock and roll than probably the progressive aspect that Steve Morse would be more comfortable. So it's moving back to more familiar territory for me. So I'm not saying that Simon McBride's Blackmore, but it felt more comfortable for me musically. Ian Pace is playing great. I thought Don Airey, there was elements of Don Airey's interplay with Simon McBride that reminded me of Gary Moore and Don Airey in the Colosseum days, where they were, and it's not all Hammond organ, they're using Moog, and they just seem to be enjoying themselves. So the two things which like Lazy Sod just sounds like a rainbow track. The riff on it reminds me of Long Live Rock and Roll. It's quite, Simon McBride seems to be bringing riffs back into Purple.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to stop there and let you give you some. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with the Purple album.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was great, and it's certainly. You talked about Bywater Call as your album of the year. This is going to be in my top 3. It is so good, and there is a joy about these songs, as you say. It sounds like they are enjoying themselves, and it kind of permeates to the actual songs and the playing and what they've laid down on the album. It is, yeah. I mean, if this is the last Deep Purple album. And they've been going a very long time, since the late 60s.
Yeah.
The only original member, of course, being
Ian Pace,
indeed. I knew you'd get that. I thought you might not. Then I'd look clever. I
was going to get docked. If I'd got that wrong, you'd have docked my wages. But bear in mind, we don't have any budget. I'm on safe ground.
That's right. I mean, they're right. Simon McBride has injected some new life into this band, and I remember that album Infinite from a couple of years ago. I remember they did a thing about the recording of that, and that was pretty kind of, well, is used to all that time to record that album, and it wasn't even that great.
Yeah.
But this has got some great songs on it, and if he's come up with the riffs and the songs, then good on him. Favorite songs: Portable Door.
What is a portable door, though, Matt?
I've no idea. I hate to think. Show me the opening track. And there's some really catchy riffs on this album.
Yeah.
And did you say Lazy Sod? I mean, it's really, really good. I mean, it's got everything you need from a Deep Purple album. Great singing from Ian Gillan, who sings within himself. He's 78, I think now.
Yeah.
And they're talking about singers getting to a certain age. I mean, he's kind of, he doesn't do the screams that he used to, but he's kind of got himself to a point where he's comfortable with his singing style. So Any Pace is great. Don Airey's quite prominent on the album, and so on. It's a great piece of work. It's one of my favorite albums of the year.
Yeah.
Please go and listen to it. It's great, fantastic. Equals One by Deep Purple. And if you know what equals one means, let us know. Thanks.
So, Matt, we have come to the letter V in the A to Z Rock. We've nearly done the alphabet.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do next?
That's something we'll need to discuss in our pre-production panic meeting. after the letter Z.
We'll think of something. We'll probably think of something before then. No, we're joking. We've got loads of ideas up our sleeve.
Absolutely. Yes.
Where do you want to start?
Let's deal with the Van Halen brothers and all things to do with Van Halen. We talk about Van Halen quite a lot on this show, so I don't think we need to go into too much detail. So the V that we kick off the show with is Van Halen, Eddie, Alex, and Wolfgang.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, let's not forget Wolfie. We talked about him a lot as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
In fact, we talked about Eddie. Sadly, our first episode, we talked about Eddie Van Halen's death.
Yes.
I wouldn't advise anyone to go back to episode 1 because it sounds like we're like rabbits in the headlights. But we can if you like. You know, it's all good. Make sure you listen on YouTube because we get like 0.00000 infinity pence when you do listen. I want to mention the Flying V.
Yes.
Iconic Gibson guitar. Have you got a Flying V?
I've never had a Flying V, Matt.
Have you ever played one?
I have played a Flying V, yes.
I bet you can't sit down and play.
It's the most uncomfortable thing to play.
Yeah.
You can't play it sitting down. Or if you do, you kind of it looks as if you're using it as a spade to dig the ground up. You know, it's the headstock's in the floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we going to try and have a competition? See how many exponents of the Flying V that we know.
Well, I mean, it's not a competition, Brian. I was thinking the ones that spring to mind: KK Downing from Judas Priest,
okay.
Of course. Brian Tatler from a little band called Diamond Head.
I can't believe
plays a Gibson. Michael Schenker, of course.
We got a Schenker in there, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he plays Gibson. I mean, there's plenty of V-shaped guitars.
He might be coming back to Gibsons. He might be coming back. Yeah.
And of course, Randy Rhoads famously played a Gibson, that kind of black and white, black spotted.
He did. He did. Pat McManus.
There's loads, aren't there? Blimey.
Pat McManus, Rudolph Schenker, even the Papa Hetfield from Metallica was an early user of the Flying V.
Yeah, because they were massive fans of Diamond Head, weren't they? Rightly so. The whole of Accept, and many, many more that we can't remember or care to mention. Of course, the Wishbone Ash, of course, Martin Turner, I think, played a Flying V, and so on. Oh, Jimi Hendrix briefly played one. He did. But they are an iconic guitar, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think they're more sort of style over substance because you say famously they are difficult. You can't play them sitting down, of course, as you said. But they do look good, don't they?
They do. They're an iconic. They're a hard rock guitar. You can't imagine a country and western guitarist going, "Hey, I'm rocking up to play my chicken picking licks with a Flying V."
True.
Yeah,
not even Brad Paisley.
No,
we're going to find out now that he plays a Flying V. Of course,
I'll try and see if we can find somewhere in social media Brad Paisley with a Flying V.
Yes, people are probably shouting at their whatever. Actually, don't shout if you're out walking the dog like I do, or commuting while you listen to this podcast. Don't shout at anyone around you saying, "Why don't you mention so and so?" Anyway, yes, go on.
I was going to say, and two guitar players who are not synonymous with Flying V's, Mr. Adrian Vandenberg and Mr. Vai, Steve Vai, both former alumni of Whitesnake. They did the Slip of the Tongue tour when Whitesnake went from glam metal to silly metal on that Slip of the Tongue tour. But yeah,
Yep.
Steve Vai and Adrian Bamberg, notable mentions as V's.
Well, yeah, amazing. I mean, Steve Vai, as you say, not only a member of Whitesnake, but also a member of with David Lee Roth, wasn't he? Of course,
He was David Lee Roth.
and of course he's
Alcatraz.
solo player in his own right, done umpteen albums.
Yeah.
My favorite being Passion and Warfare, which is an absolute masterpiece piece of work from 1990.
Yes.
Jeez,
Yeah.
oh go. Andrew Vandenberg's good though, isn't he? He's about 6'10", and great guitarist, very entertaining as well. He had a short-lived band called the Moon Kings, Vandenberg's Moon Kings, of course. I thought were pretty good.
I went to see them. I
Yeah,
thought
they were all right, weren't they?
They were fabulous. Yeah.
I've seen him a couple of times recently. He's still touring as Vandenberg, so if you get a chance to see the band Vandenberg, I think they do some Whitesnake songs, don't they?
They do.
Set.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good shout. The Vandenberg and Vi. I should like to mention Van der Graaf Generator. Now, the only reason being that those folks that are old enough to remember the Friday Rock Show, another iconic rock institution we've mentioned many times, they used to have around 11 o'clock. I think it started at 10, finished at midnight, the Friday Rock Show. Around about 11 o'clock, they'd have the Friday Night Connection. And the theme music to the Friday Night Connection on the Friday Rock Show. And the connection was just 3 songs linked together. And sometimes there were very, very cryptic links. I think I only ever got one. I can remember what it was now. But I can remember to this day the only one I ever got, but I won't go into that. The theme music was a song called Theme 1.
Okay.
Yeah, when you play that, boys and girls, it'll take you back to your bedroom listening on the transistor radio in 1980 to the Friday Night Connection.
We can put it on the playlist.
I think we will.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was briefly excellent named Van der Graaf Generator.
Yes.
Where do you want to go next, Brian?
One of the funniest, a band who, a band that spawned black metal from Newcastle. Maybe if we don't get Slayer for Stone Dead, we should maybe go for Venom.
Yeah,
Venom for Stone Dead. Yeah, Venom that were formed, I think, in 1978 in Newcastle, with Cronus, Mantis, and Abaddon, the 3 of them, signed to Neat Records, which would have been synonymous with around the time of Nwabum. I remember 2 things I remember about them. I think they toured. Whenever they were touring, Metallica supported them. So
That's right. Yeah,
Metallica have supported Venom, and also I can remember when Channel 4 had the ECT program. I can remember it. We'll maybe stick it up on our socials. Venom were on ECT, and I have never seen as much pyro in my entire life, Matt, coming out of drums and guitars. It was just frightening, and they just battered away at their kits playing what was thrash metal. So a worthy shout out for Venom.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were never out of Kerrang in that era.
Exactly.
In that sort of early 80s era. And as you say, lauded as one of the biggest influences of the of thrash and heavy metal and so on. Yeah. Talking of Nwabum, by the way.
Do we have to?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Vardis, featuring the brilliantly named Steve Zodiac on guitar and lead vocals. The not so brilliantly named Alan Selway and Gary Pearson on drums and bass, respectively. They were pretty good for a while. Vardis, couple of songs that were always sort of mentioned in dispatches. 100 miles an hour and Let's Go. But I saw Vardis a couple of years ago, and they've still got it. They're still going strong. Reformed in 2014. I hope they're still going. Those that remember Vardis, with Steve Zodiac and his long blonde hair. He's got no hair now, but still sings, and he's still got great chops. So Vardis from Wakefield. Which Yorkshire, that's hotbed of all things to Nwabum back in the day.
It certainly sounds it.
Yes, he says dismissively. What you got now?
Let's deal with some V brothers. So the first one off for me is the Vaughan brothers. You've got Jimmy Vaughan, and you have probably one of my earliest influences as a guitar player. I remember somebody giving me a cassette. On one side of it was Stevie Ray Vaughan. The album was Couldn't Stand the Weather, and he did a tremendous version of Voodoo Child on it. And it was actually the first time I had heard the track Voodoo Child. I didn't know that it was a Jimi Hendrix cover. And Stevie Ray Vaughan sadly passed away far too soon in 1990. Stevie Ray Vaughan in Double Trouble, phenomenal. And his brother still plays to this day, and plays with Eric Clapton, and is viewed as one of the stalwarts of Texas blues. So the Vaughan brothers, and then we have the Van Zandt brothers as well too, Matt. We've got how many?
Donny, Ronnie, and Johnny. Donny, Ronnie, and Johnny.
So it sounds more like the Osmonds, doesn't it?
It does a bit. Or the Ramones, even.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great shout about Steve Ray Vaughan. Yes, Ronnie, Donny, and Johnny. Yeah. Ronnie Van Zant, of course, was the also killed very young in an air-related accident. Yeah. Of course, in singer of Leonard Skinner, Johnny Van Zant, who replaced him, and Donny Van Zant, who was in 38 Special.
Yeah.
So yeah. What a family.
I know.
3 amazing musicians. And Johnny Van Zant does a good kind of he keeps the flame going, the Leonard Skinner flame, as it were, does it really well, and is very respectful of the members of that. Most of them are gone now, sadly. From that era. So that's a good shout, Brian. Very good shout.
And the one Van Zant who's not related, we don't think, to the 3 brothers, is Little Stephen. Stephen Van Zant, who for many, many years was and still is Bruce Springsteen's right-hand man in the E Street Band. And for a while in the mid-'80s, Little Stephen, and there was the Disciples of Soul, and he did, I remember him bringing out a charity single for Sun City. We're not going to play Sun City, and lots of bands that went and played Sun City got pelters for doing that. One of them being Queen. Yeah. But Stephen Van Zandt, who is, if you're looking for somebody to follow on Twitter, Stephen Van Zandt is brilliant, because not only is he politically minded as well too, he's pretty much up on his sports. So on 1 minute he could be talking about Chelsea's football team and formation, and then he could be talking about the Democratic nominations for that. He's such a well-read and very entertaining formerly known as Twitter person to follow.
That's right. Yeah, very funny, very entertaining, really top guy. What else we got? Notable mentions. Yeah. Another Vaughan, Danny Vaughan, who was, he is. I saw him recently actually in Taiketo.
Yeah.
Who are also out touring this year. They're worth seeing. Taiketo.
Aren't they just?
Brilliant. Fantastic singer. Still got a great voice. Butch Vig, who people say, Butch Vig, of course, he's a drummer of Garbage. Oh, I know he is, but he's also the guy who produced Nevermind and many others, Foo Fighters albums. But his main claim to fame, if he needs a claim to fame, is he coaxed many a production out of Kurt Cobain and ended up with one of the greatest albums ever in Nevermind. So the great Butch Vig.
Yeah.
Eddie Vedder. We should mention Eddie Vedder, shouldn't we?
We should.
Yeah, we should. And we have mentioned Pearl Jam about 1 billion times, but Eddie Vedder, which is not his real name, but we'll go with it anyway, we've got to put him in. We've got to put him in the V's, even though his real name is Edward Louis Severson III. Oh. Not very rock and roll, is it? No. What else you got, bro?
A couple of mentions from me. One of the seminal heavy metal bands of the late 60s, early 70s, well known for real heavy cover versions, is Vanilla Fudge, with Tim Bogart on bass and vocals and Carmen Appice on drums. Vanilla Fudge did some, real heavy covers, and then obviously split up, and then you had Beck, Bogart, and a piece. One of the first real power trios.
Or it could be known as by another name, couldn't they? A supergroup.
They could be a supergroup.
There you go. I said it for you.
And in the same vein, then, if we're talking about supergroups, we then have to mention Velvet Revolver, which for many, many years was, Slash, Duff, Matt Sorum were trying to find a singer, and they ended up with Stone Temple Pilots vocalist Scott Weiland. Their debut album is fantastic. I was lucky enough to see Velvet Revolver. Don't know if you saw them, Matt.
Oh yeah.
Tracks like Slither, Fall to Pieces. I haven't really given that much time to the second album, but that debut album was great. So Velvet Revolver,
Libertad.
Was that what it was? Yeah, I've got it. But yeah.
Second album was called Contraband. Yeah, both good albums. And then the wheels fell off for poor old Scott Weiland, and the rest is history. Dave Kushner, of course, can't forget Dave Kushner on rhythm guitar. Of course, the unsung hero of that band, dare I say.
Yeah.
Other notable mentions: Vixen.
Yes.
Wow, they were great. They didn't quite wear as much makeup as Poison, or their hair wasn't quite so big in that kind of hair metal glam era of the late 80s, early 90s. But it's some great songs.
Yes.
And we're checking out the songs like Edge of a Broken Heart and many, many more. We haven't got time to mention. Volbeat.
Yes.
Modern classic in Lola Montez, one of the greatest songs written in the 21st century, in my opinion. Brilliant song. And really good live, actually. Really quite metal when you see them live.
He sounds very reminiscent of James Hetfield, his vocal.
He does. Yeah. He does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any more, Brian? Any more?
Vega, we cannot not mention Vega, because we saw Vega were one of the first bands that we saw coming out of lockdown. We saw them in the underground in London. Vega are just one of those AOR melodic rock. They're in that FM, bracket of, they're just like they're like a championship version of Def Leppard. And I'm being respected. They just need a break, and they could be massive. You talk about glam metal with Vixen, a band that was got a lot of coverage in the glam metal pages was Vane, head fronted by Davey Vane. Their album No Respect is one of the classic glam metal bands of the 80s. And the final one from me, Matt, is not so much classic rock, but somebody who is revered within the Beatles family is a guy called Klaus Voormann, and probably a bit like Bush Vig when you go, who he? Klaus Voormann is the graphic artist who designed the cover of Revolver. He actually got a Grammy for that, but he also was a renowned bass player. So he played with Carly Simon. I played on Ringo Starr's. He was just in the Beatles family, and famously, whenever the Beatles split up, the rest of the Beatles minus Paul got together, and their bass player was Klaus Voormann, and I think there are potentially some recordings of a band called The Ladders with Ringo, John, George, and Klaus Voormann, and a very, very interesting man. There's an amazing documentary called about his life as a graphic designer and as a bass player and as a friend of the Beatles, called All You Need Is Klaus. Watch it, check him out. But yeah, Klaus Voormann, just one of those influential musicians and artists who never really gets talked about. That's me.
Very good. And that was the letter V. So finally, boys and girls, and it brings us to everyone's favourite part of the podcast. Hidden Gems Eyes. Thank you, Lola. fairly great as always. What do you got for us, Bri?
Inspired by your addition of Danny Vaughan into the letter V, I have gone with an album from 1986, Matt. It is an album called Save Your Prayers from the band called Wasted. Wasted were an offshoot when Pete Way had left UFO. They brought out a few EPs and then they had an album with a singer called Finn. Quite sounded like of Bon Scott. He had quite a raspy voice, or probably more like Dan McCaffrey from Nazareth is probably the vocal style. But Finn left the band and they brought Danny Vaughan into Wasted, and Save a Prayer is just melodic rock heaven. It is just the tracks on it, standout tracks, Walls Fall Down, Back in Blue, Heroes Die Young. They re-recorded a track that they had on their previous album called Heaven Tonight. Yeah.
What a song.
Yeah, it is. And both versions are equally as good, but Danny Vaughan is just singing like an angel on that album. Pete Way is just... Pete Way doesn't get the credit for the songwriter that he is. On all of the material that he wrote with Phil Mogg and Michael Schenker. But the album he wrote with Paul Chapman, and as you know, Matt, Paul Chapman is one of my favourite guitar players, often gets overlooked in the pantheon of great guitar players, and he followed Michael Schenker and he did a great job. So my hidden gem for this episode is the album with Danny Vaughan with Wasted called Save Your Prayers. What have you got?
So I've got a book this time, Bri, and it's one of the greatest books ever written. It's one of my favourite books. I've read it many, many times, and I've just ordered another copy because I keep giving my copies away to people saying, you should read this. It's one of the greatest books ever written. And it is, I've given it a big build-up. It's called Hellbent for Leather, Confessions of a Heavy Metal Addict by Seb Hunter. Now, if you've read it, you'll know. And I know plenty of people have read it that are listening to this, and good on you. It is absolutely fantastic. It's... charts. It's a kind of autobiographical book. It charts Seb Hunter's life as a young fella, 15 years old, picking up a guitar for the first time. This will resonate with you, Bri, of course. And learning to play it, joining a band, the ups and downs of being in a band, moving to London, getting into Class A drugs. Along the way, coming out the other side, and so on and so forth. And it's a great read. And while we're at it, he's also written another book, How to Be a Better Person, which is equally hilarious. But for now, we're going to stick with Hellbent for Leather, Confessions of a Heavy Metal Addict by Seb Hunter.
Fab. Good choice.
It's great. You should read it, Brian.
I will do.
Yeah. Everyone should read it. That's really why I said it. Right. So that was it. Episode 69 in the bag, with no innuendos at all, which is good. And we will see everyone next time. Episode 70? How did that happen? Unbelievable. Episode 70. Wow. Well, it's been nice, Brad. Did you enjoy it?
I did indeed.
Had a good time?
I had a lovely time. If you've enjoyed the show, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. We're on... Apple, Spotify, and all well-known streaming services. We're also on YouTube as well too, so hit us up there for a like on YouTube. We're also on Scotland Rocks Radio every third Tuesday, so check us out there and listen to some of the other shows on the station as well too. It's a great radio station. And next time I will see you, mate, we will be at Stone Dead Festival.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yes, indeed. Rocking away. Yeah, we'll give everyone a review of that when we speak next.
We shall do.
All right. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Bye. See you now. Bye.
Goes Back to Pod. We Salute You is a Made in Rogers production.